Hey, what's going on? I'm back. It's been a long, long 7 days. Not much has changed with that because I haven't been out here to touch it. But my dad pulled out his bike. I'm assuming he's gonna ride it again. It's a 1986 Nighthawk. It was a really pretty red, white, and blue theme one. If I can find a picture, I'll put it in there. But this bike used to be really pretty, but then a couple of people learned how to ride on it. And he didn't stop caring about it a little bit. So then he just, fixed the things wrong with it and then rattle canned it flat black. I miss the old red, white, and blue. It was a really neat bike, but this is his bike now. I currently don't have a bike. I used to have a bike. I used to have that 883 iron, but I sold that to pay some stuff off. I regret that. But I did learn how to ride on this bike. So I never dumped it, but I did learn how to ride on this bike. It's one heavy bike. Yeah, it's 750 shaft driven 750. Real cool bike. Sounds pretty nice too. I might actually. My dad said he's gonna leave all this on there, but I might actually clean that off for him. Well, we'll see. He might be kind of bummed if I wipe that off for him because he said he seemed pretty happy to drive it around all dirty. But we'll see. I might clean it and detail it for him. We'll see how that goes. But while I was off, I did order a few things for the truck. I got my bump stops in, so I can cut those open real quick. I got them, but I haven't really looked at them. They're just simple bump stops. They're called button bump stops apparently, not pancake bump stops. I wasn't really sure of the name. That's just what I've always called them. Little pancake bump stops, but they're button push stop bump stops. They're just generic energy suspension little button bump stops. So yeah, they were $20. They're actually located here right in Wisconsin, so I got them pretty quick after I ordered them because I ordered some stuff right after that last video. Nothing crazy, but yeah, that's what I got. And then those are gonna go up underneath. Like when I cut that in half, I'll drill my hole. Those will go through that hole, and then I'm gonna weld this nut on the back side of that hole. So then those will just sit up in there. So then that way that axle's not slapping against, metal if I were to bottom out on the C-notch. But yeah, we'll get that going. We'll get the bed off and start ripping into her. My goal is to get it to C-notched in this video. So we'll see how that goes. Let's hop to it. Alright, so here's what I got after a quick couple of measurements. I got my axle center line. I just roughly set out my little grid, I guess you could call it, for my C-notch. I used my axle center line off my dad's truck because they're identical. Same short bed chassis configuration. So I measured both sides, the axle center line, then I split the difference and then came up with my measurement. And it was 9 inches from the front of this to my axle center line with burning 1 inch, because that just makes it more accurate to measure versus the edge of the tape measure. So I got that. Did my axle center line on both sides of the chassis. I used a meter stick and just did both my lines, and then I came down the side of the chassis too. And for that, I just used a square to get because my chassis isn't level. I just have it on jack stands, and I don't feel like, lifting the front of the truck and then making the chassis level. I'm just going squarely off like the chassis as far as like the angle and the pitch of everything, because I'm not doing anything crazy to it. So I don't need to have the chassis level to, do any of the C-notching, because it's not that critical of a thing. Same with my shocks. When I set those up, I'm just gonna figure in the the chassis angle to my shock angle, and then my shock should be, where they're supposed to be, once the chassis is on the ground. But I got those set up. And then for half of the C-notch, it's a 4.5 inch C-notch. So it's just 2 1/4. So I did 2 1/4 from the bottom of the chassis up, and then 2 1/4 from axle center line both ways. Then did 2 lines up. So then that gives me where I need to put my C-notch on both sides of the chassis. I did have to cut my brake line bracket off, so I cut that off. I'll be able to re-weld that back on, but I'll just have to move it up, which isn't that big of a deal. But I got those laid out on both sides, so now I'm ready to start cutting. I mean, this shouldn't be like that long of a job. Really, the longest part is, you know, setting everything out. I keep wanting to focus on my finger. That's kind of funny. But it keeps wanting to, yeah. So I got everything laid out, so I'll cut it all out, then get those up in there and start tacking. I think the longest part of this whole process is laying everything out, like I was saying before I went all ADD. Getting everything laid out and then tacking everything in and welding it and grinding it. That's honestly the longest part. Especially when you got boxed rails already. It's super easy to notch rails. And common rule of thumb is when you got a fully boxed chassis, you can notch up to half of it before you lose any sort of structural integrity of the beam strength itself. So, I mean, and I'm nowhere near half of it, so I think that should be plenty of a C-notch. I'm notching it 2 1/4, but after, you know, the material and the bump stop, because that bump stop's a 1-inch bump stop. So, I mean, I'm notching it 2 1/4, but it's not anywhere near that, so. But it'll look pretty good by the time I'm done. Actually, it'll look just like my dad's, more or less. So yeah, it'll look like that by the time I'm done. So we'll hop to it and get this going. Maybe I can get my axle back in so I can start mocking up my shocks too. That'd be great. Get all that done in one night. So we'll get going with this, and I'll update you when I get far enough to update you. Okay, so here's where I got after a little while. It actually took me a lot longer than I thought it was going to take, but I have a better idea how to do the other side, because I didn't realize that there were 2 plates there. For whatever reason, like, I knew they overlapped, but for some reason my brain wasn't thinking, and for some reason I thought I was going to be able to just chop right through that real easy. But I mean, it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great. But yeah, there's 2 plates in there. So it was a little rough to cut through. Wasn't like a super big deal. But yeah, I got that in. Then I cut these up right away. So yeah, I got these going. And all I did was cut that in half and then slapped it up in there. So it fits real nice. And then I got my center line on there too, so then I could center my bump stop. But yeah, I put that in there. And all I do is have to trim these corners, like right there. So just round those off a little bit, angle them up. Should be able to tack that in there right away. But yeah, so I got that on there. I just got done drilling those holes. I did, to get the center of that, I just, you know, went by half and got the center there, and then did my axle center line on that, and then brought that over and center punched it. And then those are going to go in there like that. And then I'm going to tack that nut on there. It's a nylock nut. I'm going to be MIG welding it, so I'm going to MIG weld it. Like, it shouldn't burn the nylock, but if it does, it's not really a big deal. But yeah, that'll go in there like that. Let's see if I'm doing that right. But yeah, it'll go in there something like that, and it'll sit in there. Once I tighten the bushing up, it'll get rid of that cap up there. But yeah, that's more or less what it's going to look like when I'm done with it. So yeah, we'll get the other side hammered out and then tack these up and weld them in, and she should be C-notched. And then I can start with the axle, get that in and get the shock tube mounted up and all that good stuff. But we'll see. Might call it a night. I'm not sure, because it's already pretty late, because that took me a lot longer than I thought it was going to take. And I don't want to spend a ton of time doing this weekend, because I took an extra day off so I can have some time to relax. But I still want to get this done. So we'll see how that goes. Maybe I'll start on this and see how quick it goes and go from there. But if I don't get it done today, I'll get it done tomorrow, which it'll still be the same video. So, alright, so I got it done. I stayed out here a lot longer than I anticipated because I was making really good progress, and I was like, yeah, what the hell. So I ended up staying out here till it is currently 4:30 a.m. So I decided to stay out here and get this done. That way tomorrow I can come out here and do more of the other stuff. But yeah, that's how she turned out. Turned out pretty good. I had to go back and re-weld it a couple times just because of like the porosity and whatnot. That side actually turned out the worst because I had to go back and re-weld that multiple times. I think I had to weld that one like 3 times because the porosity was so bad on that one. But I mean, you'll get that on welding on old rusty chassis. I'm just glad this chassis wasn't too terribly rusty, so it wasn't super terrible. But yeah, I have to put a thread chaser through there to clean it out a little bit after welding and grinding around it. But yeah, that's where my bump stop's gonna go. But I'll screw that all the way in, and I'll close that gap and I'll smush it up. I'm not worried about the bolt ripping out of there or anything like that. It should be fine. Yeah, that should be fine. So that's pretty much it. So on to the next part. Getting that rear shock in. So we'll do that in the next video. Till then, see you guys later.